G'day and welcome again to another Campfire Panel Discussion. And today I have with me, first of all, Andy Bryce, EFT Master. How are you, Andy?
I'm doing very well, all things considered.
And we have Rose Davidson, who is an advocate for family and domestic violence. G'day, Rose.
Hey, how are you?
And we have Thomas Graham, who is an Indigenous radio personality here in Newcastle. How are you, Thomas?
Good, thanks, guys. How are you?
Now, one of the things that we thought would be a good thing to talk about, especially in our present situation, is the effect on isolation on families. And I thought that'd be a great place to start. And I was just wondering who would like to start us off on the conversation. Who's been feeling the effects of isolation at the moment?
Well, maybe I could just say something and defer to Rose because the family violence, I mentioned earlier, I worked with teenagers in care in Canada for 10 years, and they were in care because of either their violence or the violence they received. And which is sort of what I was considering today. Some families are locked in with their abusers. And so it's a generalized situation for the safety of us all, but what kind of effects is it having in individual and personal?
See, I didn't need to hijack the conversation at all anyway.
Just handed it to you.
There we go.
Yeah, we discussed that last panel about how domestic and family violence survivors are going to get through this, and they're locked in with their abuser, male or female. It's not gender specific.
That's it.
Yeah, really. Who's there for them? Who's going to look after their interests? It's frightening, and I am not looking forward to the statistics at the end of all this. It's going to be absolutely frightening, I think.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day who just mentioned that they never hear much from their neighbours, and their neighbours, husband and wife, get on really well, but she heard them yelling at each other the other day. So
yeah,
being in isolation does add a lot of pressure.
Yep, and you never know what happens really behind closed doors. I mean, sometimes they may argue quietly if there's such a thing. So, yeah.
And one of the characteristics that I've found is you don't talk about, the family is trained not to talk about daddy's violence or mummy's drinking or whatever it is that the family secret is. So we're, I think you're right, we won't like the numbers when we see them.
No, it's going to be really scary.
What do you think we can do, though? I mean, is there something, since no one can go into the home, there's no social worker that's going to be able to be doing visits or anything. So it's all going to be after the fact.
Well, I think if you know that there's an issue with family, whether it's mum, dad, or whatever, next door neighbour or Auntie Joe down the road, I think you need to be mindful that that you're not quiet, and then if you're walking past, you're just yelling out from the street, "Are you okay?" I think that's at least something. I mean, you still are allowed to go for a walk on your own, or have a family member with you. I mean, I know that's the case in Tasmania. So, even if you're just from the fence line and just yelling out to make sure that whoever is being abused is, coming to the window at least, and you can actually see their face. Whether you can't guarantee that they're okay, but at least you can see them and they're not dead.
Yeah, because one of the things is that as you're walking up the street, unless they're making noise, or if you don't know that there's anything going on in the house because you've never heard anything before, then you're not going to know. So as you're walking around, unless they're making a noise, you're not going to know that something's going on. But if you do hear something going on, then you need to take steps of some form, and that might,
correct,
as I said, yelling out through the window. We've got our physical distancing. And so that's fine. And we are allowed to walk around the streets, buying food, exercising, things like that. And walking is exercise.
Yeah. Just checking your neighbours, I think.
How about you, Thomas? What have you noticed?
I think it's definitely put a lot of pressure and angst on a lot of people because of well, it's not an ideal, it's a reality now that people are living and spending a lot more time with that significant other that potentially could go down that way, or potentially has done that in the past. So it's a habitual offender. So I think also, and I'm going to say it this way, and it's not this way inclined, and I'll share the context after, but I think we need to also look at the people that would love to have that. And let me explain. I'm not saying that they would love to have the domestic abuse, but they'd love to have the family. There's one thing that people, like, coming from my background, my dad's passed and mum's still with me, thankfully, praise God, but I've barely spoken to my mum, and I know that's a stupid thing on my behalf, but like, it's just, I'd do anything to go back and live with mum. But I know that I could never do that because we never got along. And so that's where I mean that they would love to have that because they would just be close to them. So yeah, I think we've got to look at both sides of the story. People are isolated because of family. The family's broken. The family's split apart, and now isolation has kind of made them come to their senses and realised, okay, this was bad, and start to clear the slate in a sense. But I guess that's more a higher reality or an ideal than what we are currently seeing in the stats. The stats are more on the other side of domestic violence and stuff like that. So, yeah.
When I, thanks, Thomas. So that triggered a memory for me when I was working with the government of British Columbia Ministry of Children and Families. I was working with kids in care, teenagers, 13 to 18, and we'd have maybe 35 to 50 kids come through because we were an assessment group. And my wife was a teacher in a high school, and I would go to graduation ceremonies and be amazed because there'd be like 200 kids, and they'd be the one speaking about, I did this, and here's the valedictorian. And my vision was narrowed down to the 35 kids who were in trouble and how they worked and whether they were punching me or some of them were in rough shape. So where are we looking? What are we filtering for? And that question I brought up was sort of focused on looking at the problems. And you've mentioned, well, actually, there's some possibility of a lot of good stuff, and the concept of family when it works is fabulous. I was walking my dogs yesterday, and I do that a couple of times a day. And I walked by this house, and the top bedroom windows flew open, and the kids and the mom said, "We're waving, hi, Andy, hi." And I thought, now there's a family I would want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So there's possibility.
On the other side of that, though, Andy, that family, the father may have been out at the work shed. He may be I'm not saying that he was, I'm just saying that he may be. And, that was their, hello, Andy, we're having a good time because we're not with our abuser. We don't know what happens.
Well, this is one of the things that I work with is, what are we filtering for? And what I was meaning is, like, that wouldn't be something that I immediately went to. I actually know the family, so
I'm not saying otherwise.
Yeah. But the thing is, he's a gem, and so I think we see what we're filtering for, and if we're filtering for problems, if we're looking for problems, that's what we see, and that's what we'll notice, and that's what my point of you know, being in the workplace, that's what I thought teenagers were. And when we're working with violence in the home, that's what you're looking for. And is it thousands, millions? Is it 1%? Is it 100%? I think we have to, what was important for me was to see that there are a lot of healthy people and a lot of healthy families, so that we don't get to, the families that are in trouble need help, and it's important. But we can't forget that there are also healthy families, and they should be supported and acknowledged too.
Yeah.
And how do we support either side of the fence, the healthy and the unhealthy? I mean, you know, as you said, we can't go into the home. We can't, you know, stand within 1.5 meters of anybody. How can we support them other than through Zoom or through Skype or through FaceTime or one of those mediums, or, you know, telephone calls or whatever? Do we actually keep in touch, or do we say, oh yeah, we'll do that, and then, you know, don't do it because we just think, well, you know, there's always tomorrow because we're going to be stuck here for another, you know, 2 or 3 weeks, or you know, do we put it off because, you know, we're lazy, or do we don't do it because, oh, you know, they'll be here tomorrow? What's the answer?
Comes up with a lot of, you know, there's a lot of different possibilities, same as with any families. All the families are out there. We look at the situation. There could be, you know, if we, as Andy said, from our filter, we can look at it and we can see that as being a healthy family. We can then look at it from a suspicious thing and say, well, you know, is the father in the background, or the kids, the family, or, you know, mother, the wife and the kids away from him, they're feeling good. He may not even be there at all, may not even be part of a family anymore. So we don't really know. There's so many things that go on there. So it's a case of being able to, typical when your phone picks up your voice and starts trying to Google. Yeah, that threw me.
How can I help you today?
Yes, by leaving me alone. Stop the binging noises. It's one of the things is it comes down to, well, what can we do? I know that, well, first thing I really have a problem with at the moment is the word social separation, or social isolation, or social distancing. I'm really opposed to that. It's physical distancing, so that we physically are away from the virus so we don't connect. They use that term. I think a lot more people have been a lot happier and wouldn't have been responding in a negative way. You wouldn't have had so many people breaking the law when they first of all said you can't go out in numbers, you can't go to parks and things like that. If they called it physical separation or physical isolation, physical distancing, that would have been okay. What we were finding is with some of us, we're getting so much more socially connected while we're physically distanced from each other. And so I know a few people have already started, they're going around and putting messages, and as they go out for their walk, they put a message in everybody's letterbox saying, hey, this is the Zoom address at this particular time of the day. We're all going to be online, and here's a couple of different times. And they're getting on their computers, and they're sitting there waiting for people to come in. They're talking to neighbours they've never spoken to before. And so they're having conversations. And the only way that you're going to pick up if something's going on in a particular family is by being involved with them, repetition. So in other words, the more frequently we're talking to them, the more chance we've got of picking up something if there is a problem there. So what we need to be doing is getting together in that through technology or whatever, socially connecting with people more than we've done in the past. We've got people now talking to their neighbours, and they don't talk to their neighbours before. They're 2 or 3 doors down the road. But now everyone wants to reconnect because we are tribal, and they're making the effort to connect. And so,
Thomas, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this.
Well, I'm going to put it this way. Not only has the church has benefited majorly out of this outcome when it's come from a physical church setting to a online facility. We are now in the eyes of the people that we need the most, and like I know that sounded really cliche or whatever you want to call it, but it's put a massive strain not only on government and also our network providers that we are now socially connecting in different ways. And so it's incredible. Like, obviously, yeah, I said it's struggling. It is. We're struggling, especially in Australia, to keep up. But you know what? I think it's a good problem to have in a world that is all about trying to stay connected, to trying to win people's attention, and to try and connect with people. We are now in a time that has produced a lot of fear in our people, but also has allowed us or put us in a stage where we've gone into our shell. We've become comfortable with dealing with things that we're just dealing with, like where it's not uncommon or frowned upon to be looking at your phone all the time. Like, that's just the reality of what it is. And people come out and say that's bad that we're continue looking at our phones. Yeah, I know, but it's the only thing that we have right now, apart from mainstream television and all that allows us to alienate ourselves, but also gives the opportunity for the optimists and the opportunists to come and produce a message on the thing that's been used the most. And so, as I said, the church has benefited greatly out of that. Businesses will start to go with the curve of people going to this. Marketing strategies will change. So it's, although it is kind of a de-confronting way, it's quite beneficial. And yeah, it's like, yeah.
Well, the way I saw the devices before, like technology-wise, we've been really connected with all the devices for a long time. But emotionally, we've been disconnected from ourselves and each other. And that's been why so many coaching institutes and coaching companies have come out, where we have so many life coaches these days, with so many people that need help. But now we've got the way we're using it today is more of a social connection. Before, everyone was complaining about social media being a problem. Now it's the only connection that we have, and people are using a completely different way. It'll be interesting to see if that becomes the new norm when all this is over.
It will be. I've noticed a lot of difference in my feed now. Less advertising and more people connecting with, I Spy games and, give me the 10th photo on your camera roll, and, just games that we have to actually not talk like physically talk, but you interact with the person that's posted. So yeah, in that way, I think it's helped us a great deal. But I think we've got a bit off topic about these people that were isolated and how we're going to help them when we can't.
Well,
thanks for hijacking.
You were going to say, Thomas?
Thanks for hijacking it back to what it was, Rose.
But and it's a good point. We need to keep on that side, because we can talk about the upside of all of this, but how do we connect with those people? Again, using some of the upside stuff that we're doing, using that to connect with people. So it's, how do we help them? Well, each individual, we've got to make a decision for ourselves how we're going to do this. And I can see that, taking that time to get in touch with the neighbours. Now, I know that some people had, they got around all the neighbours and said, right, here's a heart or a piece of cardboard or whatever in different colours. If you're okay, put this one in the window. If you're not okay, then change it. If you need help. There are other people who had ribbons that they were using and putting it outside. They had little containers near the gate. And if you needed help, you put a note in there. So some of the elderly were doing that as well. So,
okay, bringing to that, how do we help the elderly who are technically challenged and don't have mobile devices and laptops and things that we're used to? How do we help them?
Well, with all those cards in the windows, the notes at the doors, all of that stuff. The technology side of it is only just a fraction of it all, of what we can do. Having the Zoom calls, yes, those that know how to use devices, and I was seeing a friend of mine had her grandmother's had her 101st birthday, and she's in New Zealand, and she's sitting there on her Zoom with the uncle, who's much older than me again, who he's
impossible.
Yeah, kind of stick to the truth, okay?
Okay, he's about my age. Okay, he's younger, but he also makes circuit boards and other things. So there's some people in the older ages do have the technology. I know that some of the younger ones, my boys always ask me how to use devices, and it's like, it's not just the elderly that have the problem with the devices, but we look at all the other things. As I said, the cards in the windows, the messages left at the gate, those things. Now, this is where we're still physically distanced, but we can have, as you said, you can yell out, you can use your voice. Connect with those people, ask them. The other thing too is there was one group that said, right, they wanted to make sure that the elderly, when they got up in the morning, they opened their blinds up. They weren't open by a certain time, knowing that the elderly would be up by, say, 9 o'clock or whatever, that if the curtains hadn't been opened, next thing you know, they'd be calling the authorities or the services to come and check them out to make sure they're okay. You know?
Yeah, good point. I mean, it's if we have been paying attention to our neighbours up until this point and what they have been doing.
In the past, we wouldn't have, but now we've got that opportunity to do just that.
We do, I'm hoping that people are taking that opportunity to connect. And I think because that's what the world's missed for a very long time, is that personal connection.
And I think that's a challenge we should put out to everybody in the Campfire Project as well, is, what ideas or suggestions would you have? Or if you're in isolation and feeling left out and everything else, what suggestions you would have that other people could then apply to get in touch with someone like yourself? And let's hear from the people who are in that position saying, hey, what do you need? It's all right for us to say, oh, we can do this for you, but what is it that they need, so we can then do what they actually need, not just what we think they need.
That's correct. Yep.
I'm just wondering, in my community here, I walk my dogs 3 times a day. I see other people always have stopped. We've been here 9 years. I know just about everybody in the area. There's one woman who has lung disease, so we are in touch with her to make sure that she's all right, because she's very vulnerable to the virus, and she's very cautious, so you don't see her. If she's going to walk the dog, she'll be 50 meters away, but just knowing that she's walking, we have her phone number and text, so we can check in on that. Like the kids that were waving, Dad wasn't there, but I know he's there. He actually works in France, so he had to come back. So I just know where the kids are, where the families are, and that's just part of being in a community. And it doesn't seem to be a stretch or something that, although years ago when I lived in an apartment, nobody in the building knew anybody else in the building. But in this situation, we're sort of detached homes and townhouses, and there's a lot of community, even though we're not like organized, we kind of know who's where and what's happening, and I think that's probably one of the things we can do, is just actually care what's going on with people without having to cross the line of getting into their business. Just hey, how are you? And
that's it. Yeah, caring is caring. I mean, caring is sharing. Sharing is caring. Yes. Thomas.
Sorry, I thought you were going, Rose. I'll be quick. But so the church actually, when COVID-19 started, being as influential as it is, the church and many different churches have done their own style, but we issued a little flyer I don't know if you guys can see that very well. It just says, hi, my name is so-and-so, I'm from Life Church, Sheffield Cafe, and I live in local to you. And if you're self-isolating due to COVID-19, I'm available to help you with the following: pick up or delivery groceries, emergency care packs, phone call, prayer or other. And so that received an amazing response, because people were actually like, wow, like they actually care. And also, like, it's got their contact number on it, the street is connected, and it was just a really, really good initiative to connect with people and help them out, especially the elderly. The church that I'm a part of is very highly, it's probably got about a 70% demographic of aged or old people, like yourself, Alan.
Nice, like that.
And so this was very helpful for them, because their mobility is low, and someone that was willing just to get beside them and support them and help them with their time has been an incredible attribute, not only to the church, but also to the community. So.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's for each of us, and that to reach out, not just wait for somebody to reach out to us who might be in trouble, for us to reach out and say, hey, we're here first of all. So they know they can then reach out, that somebody is going to listen.
Yeah, crisis tends to bring out the truth of a person, and this is, people are showing up, groups, churches are showing up as to, you know, a lot of churches in the United States are still having in-person congregations. Other churches in Vancouver, I'm still in touch with, are online and supporting their community. And I think that's great, Thomas. But it's
my mum's church has gone totally online. They Zoom every Sunday, and then they have, you know, morning devotional, and they have Bible class. Wednesday night, and you know, so I help her set up her laptop, because she's not, she's very technically challenged, and so like no, not like Alan. If you've seen his setup, no way.
That's no.
You, Andy, you're technically challenged, are you?
I see. Not like Alan. No, I don't deserve to be on the same screen as Alan.
No, his setup's pretty awesome, eh?
Pretty awesome.
Yeah, and thanks to Scott, it was given away on film. Just to have Scott Carson, you'll keep. Gave away all my secrets.
Yeah, he'll have a birthday one day.
Behind me, and on the other shot, it was a green screen. Thanks, mate.
You'll have a birthday one day, Scott, and Alan will be there. Don't you worry.
Oh yeah, we're going to sort him out. That's an example, though, of, you know, we had all these people came into the Campfire Project who didn't know each other, and the connections that are being made now, people are talking together and building things together. You know, different coaches in different areas are getting together and working together. Just what you guys all did for my birthday was, you know, amazing. The fact that everybody who didn't even know each other was then talking to each other and organising things. So it has brought out a different spirit in a lot of people. And yes, some people it's going to go the wrong way because they don't know how to reach out. They're under stress, they're under pressure, and that builds up, and they take it out on other people around them as well. And so, you know, it comes down, well, which way they're going to go, we've got no idea, but all we can really do is individually be ourselves and ask ourselves, well, what sort of a person are we? Are we somebody who just looks after ourselves, or do we look at helping other people? I know a lot of us are putting a lot more time in helping people with not looking at charging. I've actually told a lot of my students that I'll keep working with them each week, and we'll work on their problems they got now, and I'll go back to their training after that, and whatever they get now is just free services, and that they'll still get the number of training sessions that they were going to get up to, you know, from that point on. So, you know, and we do this because that's who we are. Other people will be pushing their services and just trying to make a quick buck out of things at the moment. But at the end of the day, I think,
what does that say about them, though?
Exactly. And I think what they don't realise is that you can, as they say, you can fool some of the people most of the time, but you can't fool everybody all of the time. And most people are going to recognise those that are doing the right thing and those that aren't doing the right thing. And if the new norm is a better connection, more about relationships, then they're going to lose out in the long term. I think it was Bill Gates, I saw a media thing where he's now said the most important thing. And this is a guy who has a fortune with his technology and everything else. The most important thing in life today is relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some examples here where there are some landlords who are deferring, told their tenants they're deferring rents for the duration of this. Then there's a pub owner, you know, a string of pubs all over the UK, and he's laid off all his people. He's not giving them any support. He's not paying his suppliers, and you know, who he is clear. He's demonstrating his true nature. So we may not be able to change people, but we can certainly take notes.
Yeah, I think we can use those people as an example of what not to be or how not to be.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think
that was my note to self. Close all my pubs, but pay my staff.
Yeah. And the end result is it's going to be karma that comes back around. You know, what you put out is what you're going to get back. You know, people will get what they deserve after this. If they've done the right thing, I'll get good return out of it. If they've done the wrong thing, well, people will remember and they're going to find it harder. They won't make as much money over the full period, like not just now, but when they come out of this, won't make the same money that they could have made if they'd been a little bit more charitable and realise that they are part of a community and work together.
Yeah, but you know, it was a good point that early on that was made that Andy made us is, you know, just saying hello to people as you walk down the street, or, you know, what Thomas said about the church. What Andy again said was, you know, putting things in people's letterboxes. I think it's a great idea how we could keep in touch with all of the people up and down your street.
That's it.
Community. I think it's a terrific idea. I don't particularly like the idea of ribbons, because ribbons, if you're a fiery, you know, one colour denotes one thing and one colour denotes something else, but the coloured cards is a great idea. You know, green and red for whatever, you know, if you're in trouble, or yellow or whatever the colour might be, but it's got to be universally understood that that's the colour that it is. So to denote whether you're in trouble or you're not in trouble. But I think that's probably at this point really is the only things that we can do to help.
See, unless people are wanting to, you know, put their hands up and call out, and we know that a lot of people who are under stress, who are you know, victims of domestic violence, that they're going to, and they don't step up normally. They're not going to step up now, especially when we keep using the word that we're socially isolated or socially distanced. That it finds it harder for them to put their hands up. And so it's up to the rest of us to break that paradigm or that thought process and say, hey, no, we are here. We do care. And these are some of the things that we can do. But especially ask them. Ask the people around you, what is it that they would like to see? If they were, not even saying if you're in trouble, but if you were a person who is in trouble, what do you think somebody who would be in trouble would like? Or somebody who's really isolated, what do you think they would like? And the person you ask that of them and they are isolated, they're more likely to give you an answer. Because if you ask them, well, if you're isolated, what do you want? They don't want to acknowledge that they're isolated, or they feel under pressure, or they're feeling fear or anything else. Because how many people walk around trying to put a brave face on all the time when we know that they are stressed out, and they usually become victims at some point?
Yeah, I think it would be good to be cautious with the kind of questions you ask people you don't really know, you know, because they could be either off-putting or having them
personal tone.
Sorry, again?
Be too personal.
Yeah. So that's the thing about my close community. I mean, I have the Zoom and Skype community, but these people, I moved from Canada, where it seemed to me more socially appropriate for, we lived in the country where you just stop and talk, and here, maybe there's more people, I don't know what it is, but people were more likely. I've never met a society that was so good at making you feel invisible. I could be standing beside someone looking at the same thing in a grocery store and say something, and it was like, didn't happen. So
it never used to be like that, though. When I first came here in 1972 from Canada, I'm from Kelowna.
Oh yeah, I was there for a while.
Yeah, so, and it was never like that. It was, I don't know how we became that way. I really don't. It's just evolved over time.
Yeah.
Well, this is possibly a benefit, because that could come out of this pandemic, is that we begin to recognize what we've been missing. And how simple and easy it is to just acknowledge somebody, you know, the windows to the soul here, just make a connection and wave. There was a guy mowing his lawn the other day, and I've never met him, but he's on the edge of the park where I walk the dogs. I waved. He looked at me and went, hi. It was like, but I just wanted him to know I see him, you know. I think one of our needs is to be known, to be seen, to exist.
I agree.
Just giving that without an agenda, just hey.
Yeah, well, so I believe part of the problem of, you know, when you asked the question, Rose, about how do we get to that point, technology was one of the things, the rapid growth in technology. And we were more connected by devices, but the way we used the devices was for people who were remote, we were just ignoring the people around us. We didn't talk to the people next to us. How many times did you see people in a cafe, everyone's on their phone and no one's talking to each other?
Yeah, true.
This is one of the reasons why, you know, the coaching then became the second largest growth industry in the world after technology, because so many people were so lost and disconnected with themselves and each other. But now,
I don't think it's the only reason, though. I think
it's a big one, though. Yeah,
I think the people are not designed to live in beehive type situations. We can only process so many emotions and so many things, and it's almost like people who live in cities like New York or London, big cities. They need to isolate themselves because there's so much coming at them. So they don't want to know you exist because they have enough already. And so I think that, yes, the technology has caused a lot of isolation, but also it's sort of protection from overwhelm in the large communities. You go out to, we live 100 miles west of London. It's in Wiltshire, the county, there's less than 50,000 people. 100 miles east of me is 11 million in about the same area.
So where some places might use the technology as a way of getting away from the overwhelm of being connected, what have you noticed in the country over the years? Has there been a pulling away from that community spirit, or has it been pretty much the same all the way through?
Well, I live in a town that's been here for over 900 years, and it's still quite small. And you know, there's people that probably you would never see, or they don't know anyone. But I think it's pretty consistent. What we liked about the area when we were leaving Richmond in London was the feeling, the context of the energy, and it's centered around an abbey built over 900 years ago. And so I think that the community spirit here is staying and growing, and that online, I think it was before Trump, but it's keep Malmesbury, help keep Malmesbury great website. And if I needed an electrician or somebody's opinion, I just put a little note on there. Anybody got a thought about this? So, and we all know that. But there's only, out of the whole county, 50,000. In our area, probably 7,000, 8,000. Yeah. And we're about to move to 120 miles north up towards Newcastle under Lyme. So we'll be Newcastle to Newcastle. Yeah. And it's similar. We're looking for another small community because we're not over.
If smaller communities have pretty much stayed the same, the connectivity through the generations, but in the cities, because we've got so much more congested, we've found that we need a space, and therefore let's look at our device even when we're next to other people. That I'm wondering about whether, when we talk of technology, is it that other thing, that technology is just a tool that allowed us, because of that, needing that more separation as a village, but now we've gone to the other extreme, where we're all socially isolated in this small area in the city. So, Thomas, being Indigenous background, the communities, what sort of information you put to there? What ideas from that side of things? Because you've got the traditional background, you know what it's been like through all the generations, and what sort of shift have you found over the years?
I think in a shift from a traditional cultural point of view is when this has all started, they've gained, and I love what Andy's been saying about the communities that he's living in, and they've all banded together. Like that's us as Indigenous, like our mobs. Like we have different mobs in different places, but even if you're from a different mob, but you're still in their area, like we're going to look after you because you're our people. And so it was a real, they had to be more mindful of who was coming from the city to their place and coming into their community, because a lot of Indigenous people out west or out in their culture homes are quite different to what I would say on myself. Like I'm a city Aboriginal, and I've grown up in the city my whole life. And going back to to country, I could take back something that has never been in that community before that could devastate that place. And that was a big thing. And they had to watch who was coming into their communities and make sure that their ability to survive was dependent on that they had to stay together, that we had to ride the wave in a sense, to get through what they need to. And with technology, it's left people in a great spot. It's left people in a bad spot, and communities have really been affected by that, because, for example, a lot of people travel to Dubbo from them out the out border communities to get the help that they need. The health system only goes a certain far distance wise into these communities, and so technology has isolated them even more as what they were hoping for. And a lot of them things where the uncertain, like I've been watching a lot of government shows on Netflix, and so they've always proposed the risk and the reward, but sometimes the risk is far and above what they've anticipated, and that's unfortunately the reality of what Indigenous communities are right now. We are fighting, and we have still a strong culture in Australia, but unfortunately we have lost a portion of our culture because of the world. Like it's just like it's not putting a blame game or anything like that. It's just happened. We've either had to adapt really fast, or we've just had to stay behind. And unfortunately, there's a massive divide between culture because of that. And yeah.
One of the things that I looked at, what opportunities are there in speaking to different groups? That, because 18 years ago, I had a lot of questions in the work that I was doing. It all changed, and I had no idea. And most of the people around me were, weren't the people who were going to give me answers. There were things that were happening with a bit more of a spiritual nature. Well, I just went to the Aboriginal community and said, look, I've got these questions. I haven't got answers. I'm hoping you guys have. And so I asked them what suggestions they had. And I think that's always the case. It's the more that we ask other people, what suggestions do they have? And not just putting in a point, like you said before, Rose, we're talking to the people who might be in a place where they are in abuse or whatever, saying to them, well, what do you need? And those questions can be a bit rude or a bit raw for them. But if you ask them, well, look, we're getting ideas together on how to help people in general. What suggestions would you have for the wider community? How could we help each other? And so we're not highlighting that they have a problem, but putting them in a position where they can then answer that with the things that they need, without them saying, well, this is what I need, but this is what we believe the community needs. So we soften it for them. And that was the way I handled it when I asked the Aboriginal community. I said, look, I've got all these questions. I've got no answers. Nobody else is able to help me. So I'm not here to help you. I'm here to get some answers. What can you help me? And they treated that with respect, because I wasn't there saying, hey, I'm going to help you, which was quite insulting. They didn't need my help. I'm the one who needed the help.
Yeah, no, and they've never needed our help, really. I mean,
we introduced things to them that caused an issue.
Correct.
If we'd never been here, well, they wouldn't have needed us.
That's correct. Anyway, we won't go down that track.
Yeah, that's another conversation for another day, I think. But I think there is a lot to learn by talking. As I said, I use that one as an example because they gave me the answers that I needed. The same thing here is asking the people around us, what do they need, or what do they think that the other people around them might need as well? And then seeing how everybody can contribute. Those that are under pressure, they might go, okay, well, there's people around me who care. So they might may not come forward and say, hey, I've got this problem, but they become part of the group. And therefore they get support without actually having to say, hey, I'm under all this abuse and everything else. Because if they haven't said it before when they've been under abuse, they're not.
Why would they now? Exactly. Yeah.
So as you said, Andy, we ask the questions in the right way that are non-threatening, and we just step up to the mark ourselves and say, hey, I'm here. I don't know what I can really do, but I'm going to do whatever I can. Give me some suggestions of how I can help the community in general.
It wouldn't do any good for me because I'd have to give them a hug first.
Well, I think we probably all appreciate the word safe and safety, making things safe for people. It's a part of my work, but it's something you have to discover. Everyone has their own reality. So for me to think, oh, I can ask this question because I feel safe answering it, that isn't a projection that is always true. So you can, I think it's valuable to find out what is safe. Like, what do you want to talk about? What can you talk about? What do you think is a problem? And that gives them an opportunity to define it for themselves rather than.
And everyone's safety is different. I mean, my take on safety is different to someone else's take on safety. So, I might feel safe in a certain situation where, Joe Blow down the road won't feel as entitled. So, it's a matter of self-knowledge, I guess.
Well, it's also, I learned my dad was in mental health, not as a patient, but as a nurse. And as I was growing up, and he told me early on that, you know, people have their own reality. And if you want them to acknowledge yours or to step into yours, sometimes you have to go into their reality and ask them, well, what's going on? What is this? Rather than go with an assumption they then have to respond to. So I think Alan's gesture of asking for help, and that's an example of being considerate, and but also coming from an authentic place of wanting to know.
That's it. If you got that, then you're doing it in a respectful way. You know, there's so many people I see at the moment who want to jump in and help. They want to do things, and I'm going, well, what is it you want to do? You haven't even asked what the other people need. You know, the Aboriginal side was a perfect example of that. We jumped in and we tried to tell them what they needed. We never asked. So I think the first thing we've got to do is, right, first of all, do a check on, not what we need to do, but what I need to do is always a check on me, where I'm coming from. You know, I want to help. What's the reason for me wanting to help? Is it about the people I want to help, or is it about my need? And then go and ask questions, get feedback, let them tell me what they need. And from there, and do it in a way in which it's non-threatening. It doesn't come like I'm trying to say, oh, I'm here as your saviour. You know, I'm here to fix it. It's, you know, we're in a community together, and how can we make the community better? You know, give us some advice. Tell us what you suggest. Not even ask what they need. I say, just tell us what you suggest should be done.
So Andy's idea about putting things in people's letterboxes, perhaps we could ask the neighbourhood what they would need rather than what they want.
That's it. What do you reckon we need, you know, as a community? And then people will answer from their point of view.
A big straight party at the end of it.
Oh, I reckon there's going to the cafes and the restaurants and everything else. They're going to make a mozza when all this is over.
I think so. Yeah. If they have any people, like, if they've got the ability to even open at the end of all this, that's another kettle of fish altogether.
Yeah, well,
I don't even want to go down that road at the moment. It's too frightening to think about.
Well, a lot of businesses will close, but there'll always be new businesses that open up, and people start from scratch.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
Other people start. So, you know, there'll be a lot of unhappy people. A lot of people will lose stuff through this. But at the same time, there's also those that will bounce back quickly. I think, you know, as I'm saying to everybody at the moment, that the most important thing you have is a relationships. Going into the community, talking to people, that's relationships. And with Bill Gates saying that the most important thing in life is relationships. Hopefully people will start realising that, and things will change.
I think the relationship quality will have major impact on the recovery, because the cafes and restaurants and the small businesses that actually had relationship with their people, and the clients and customers came in and felt, you know, welcomed. They're the ones that are going to get the immediate, oh, I want to go back to there. I want to go back there. And you know, the example I gave of the pub, people are already like, doesn't matter what happens when they open, I'm not going. So the quality of your relationships is really about to be judged by how people experience you, and not how you experience them. It is both ways, true, but that's where it'll show up is quality.
Build those relationships in the first place, then people will want to continue those relationships. But
Well, they didn't do it before, as they say. When's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now. There's no other time that you can do it. Do it. If you want to get a return out, do it right now. But I think that, well, one of the cafes that I went to quite regularly, I will be glad to go back there the day they open up, because that will make me have a feeling that things are getting back to normal, because I'm back into a place that I know and everything else. So, but when I go to some of the others that I didn't like before, still wouldn't go there. relationships are everything. But guys, thanks very much for the conversation. A lot of things, as you said, with the filters, Andrew, there's so many things there that, and everybody's different. But I think, as I said, for me, I've just got to take stock of who I am, where I'm at, what I want to be able to do, what do I see as important, and if that's helping people, then go out and ask those people what they need. Get feedback. So,
pretty good show for no idea about talk about.
And Rose didn't hijack it.
And by the way, if everybody who's listening to this, all the panelists, when we figured out who's going to be in the panel, I send out a message and go, what would you like to talk about? Last minute today, I'm sending an email out to these guys saying, what are we talking about? So even when we leave it so late, we seem to do all right.
Yeah, well, out of the last panel discussion, Michael and I are actually collaborating now to help DV survivors. So yeah, there you go.
That's great.
And
You've got to come out of that one.
And this thing's on just about every continent on the planet, just proving that the community doesn't have to be in close proximity. We're right, separated physically on that, but we're all coming together. So many of the people that, like yourselves, who have come on are now talking together, building new concepts and new programs and helping people in a global situation. We've got others that have found, by listening to the one-on-ones and the panel discussions, have found somebody that they've really gelled with. Now they're being coached. So those that wouldn't put their hand up before now are putting their hand up because they've found a safe place. And, the campfire, that's what it's all about. And I keep saying the campfire is only what it is because of all of you guys who have done the one-on-ones that come into the panels and everybody else who's sitting there and listening to these conversations.
And your huge studio.
So if everybody wants to know what they're talking about, go and watch my birthday party and you'll see what happened there.
Oh, yeah, don't listen to the man behind the curtain.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah. And by the way, an extra thing that we're bringing into the Campfire Project, because when I saw the dad jokes that some of you guys got together and had, I just cried and cried with laughter when I watched those. And we thought, right, we've had the one-on-one conversation. People are talking about their past experiences. And having the courage to actually share those stories, and we've got the panel discussions. We've got Scott now doing Facebook Lives every Thursday night here in Australia. Now we're looking at, because the dad jokes just had such an effect, we're going to have a competition for dad jokes, and that will be, we're going to give a prize away, and this is opened up to everybody in the group. Scott's going to be starting to run some of his Facebook Lives. Will be dad joke sessions. We'll get a few of you on telling jokes, and everybody else have the opportunity to post their dad jokes and have those read out. Everybody to put.
Sorry, did you say sad jokes or dad?
It's a little bit of both at times, isn't it? I have to have a word with John and a few of the others, because I noticed there was a birthday party that I wasn't invited to because it was organised before this Saturday, and my name was brought into quite a few of the jokes. But as I said, I loved it so much, the tears were just streaming out of my face, and I'm glad you guys had such a great time doing it. And again, not only for being here tonight, but thank you for being part of the Campfire Project across the board.
Our pleasure, my pleasure anyway.
Absolutely.
So again, first of all, Andrew, Rose and Thomas, thanks very much for being here tonight. And to everybody else who's out there, as we said tonight, if you've got ideas, suggestions, put them in the comments field, because there's no right or wrong answers. There's no answer better than another. But if we get a lot of suggestions, then we get some ideas that can come from that. So everybody out there, you can help and contribute, if you would, please. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all later on. Bye for now.
Bye. Nice to meet you, Rose. See you, Thomas.
You too, Andy.